2. What's up, fella? How are you? Good to see you again, man.
Likewise.
I've been reading that you are having some great success with your machine finally. It's everything's up and running. Last time we talked, you had yet to implement it actually out in the wild. And now you explain to us what happened. You had some bumps in the beginning, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's been quite a few years. Finally, something's happening. So we launched our first ocean system from San Francisco in September of last year, and we took it out. And roughly 2 months later, we figured that first of all, it wasn't catching plastic. So what we saw was that the system was moving at roughly the same speed as the plastic. So maybe you just take one step back, the idea and how it works.
Sure,
So of course, we have this great Pacific garbage patch between here and Hawaii, twice the size of Texas, 100 million kilos of plastic, doesn't go away by itself. And the idea was to have this artificial coastline that is driven by the forces of the ocean. We put it in there, and the plastic naturally accumulates against it and kind of stays in there so we can then periodically get it out. Because the big challenge is that although there's a lot of plastic, it's spread out over this vast area. So we first have to concentrate it before we can take it out, because if you were to simply troll the ocean for plastic with boats and nets, it would just take for forever, really. So the idea was to have those artificial coastlines. We deployed the first one, and then what we saw was that somehow the system was moving at the same speed as the plastic. So you can imagine if this is like your Pac-Man and this is your catch and is moving at the same speed, it's not going in. And sometimes it did go in, but it went out again.
We got a video of it, what it was doing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So this is the basic idea, but it wasn't doing that. So and then, we thought, okay, that's all right. We'll learn from it. We'll try and adjust the systems. And then literally exactly a year ago, the system broke into two. And so at the structural failure, forcing us to tow the whole thing back to land and go back to the drawing board. So we didn't have the best start of this year.
How much time has been lost? Or how much time has been spent, I should say, in the beginning phase, the initial version that you launched versus where you're at now?
So we've been going on at this since 2013.
Oh, wow.
So
6 years.
Yeah, so basically after 5 years, launching it and seeing it break into two, that wasn't the best start of the year I could have imagined. But then, went to the drawing board, and the team really took it well. We took those lessons into account, adjusted the design, and relaunched really just a few months later, so in June. And this time we made the system a bit more modular, so we could try different things to try and adjust the speed, make it go faster, make it go slower. And then what we figured was, well, the system isn't going fast enough. What if we actually turn the problem into a solution? What if we turn it around and actually slow it down so that it goes slower than the plastic? And then what we figured that actually works. And in October, we announced that we're actually catching plastic. And really just last week, the first 2 shipping containers full with plastic were landed in port.
Wow, so it's really recently up and running the way you expected it. Now, how long does it take to accumulate 2 shipping containers full?
So that was roughly month and a half.
And how big are these shipping containers?
20 foot, so probably 2 of these rooms.
So the only thing that's really stopping it from getting more is like the actual size of the net itself.
Yes, so that's the next step. So now that we kind of went from 0 to 1, we have the basic principle of catching plastic confirmed. We now have to make it bigger before we can build a whole fleet of them, because we reckon we need maybe 50 or 100 of them to really clean up half this patch in 5 years. That's the objective.
Half the whole patch in 5 years. That's the real objective?
That's what we want to do.
Wow, is that really possible?
If you have enough systems, yeah.
That's incredible. Now, where are you at in terms of like trying to get these systems made and implemented?
So now we just finished this first step with the system number 1. That's how we called it. And the next step is to develop what we call system 2, which is indeed going to be a bigger version. And the idea is to minimize the amount of vessel use that you need for it. So that comes because boats are really fucking expensive. The boat that we have costs roughly 15,000 euros per day to keep running.
Wow.
just one boat. So you don't want boats to,
Do you anticipate that it ever gets to a point where the amount of money that you can generate from the actual resource of physical plastic can actually pay for the whole experiment?
I mean, I hope so. That's what we want to trial next year with by making products from the catch that we make, and the material itself hardly has any value. It's really the story to it.
You should make straws so people don't feel guilty. They're like, no, it's a recycled straw.
Yeah. They'll throw them in the ocean again.
No, that's a terrible idea. But what?
I mean, it would be a very sustainable business model. Just
keep going. Yeah. What is what are the products that you're thinking about?
We have a few ideas. So it's still kind of under development. So I think in September we should be ready to launch the first one. But I think it's going to be things that are durable, that don't end up in waste, that will retain their value, so can last for a very, very long time. And that you actually want and ideally carry around so you can talk about it with other people. And so just last week, with that first plastic on shore, we said, okay, now we welcome our supporters to actually make, I shouldn't call it a reservation, but kind of make a down payment so that you can be first in line. So if people go to our website, they can actually put in the $50 and get the right for the first ever products made from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
So you're just trying to figure out what products will have the most sustainability, what products people will keep for the longest?
Yeah, and things that people want, right? You don't want some kind of gimmick that's just going to be this paperweight.
Flip-flops seem like an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Don't they? I mean, people love to buy flip-flops. If they bought flip-flops, especially people that are like sort of like outdoorsy type folks.
Sure.
Appreciate the beach.
And maybe I have to write these things down.
Flip-flops? That's a pretty easy one.
Any other ideas?
What else, Jamie? What else would be a good one? Belts. People like belts.
All shoes. Any flip-flop. All shoes.
Yeah, shoes. Like definitely some Yeezys. Some dope recycled. Yeah, some recycled sneakers. Like, what is foam? Like the foam that they make running shoes out of. That's a very specific type of... That's not actual plastic, right? It's probably made out of something else.
It's a type of plastic. Yeah. We might be able to foam this material as well. I think we've done tests with that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Turn it into foam?
Yes.
Oh, through some sort of a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could make athletic shoes. That'd be easy, right? But you'd have to have a way to incentivize people to recycle them. It would be so ironic for those fucking things wound up back in the ocean. There's got to be a way to do that. Just if you have your own company, like drop-off points in cities where when they're done with their stuff, if it's broken down or it's old, they've used it, you could throw it into this bin and you will ensure that it gets converted back into raw materials and utilized again.
Right, yeah, circular economy.
Yeah, that'd be a great move. And people would do that if you made it easy for them. It's sort of like recycling bins. If you make it easy for them, they'll throw their bottle in there.
Sure.
Yeah. So, you have these two cargo ships or these two cargo containers filled with this plastic stuff. What do you do with it now?
Yeah, so now it's going to Europe. Unfortunately, there isn't really any useful recycling infrastructure in the U.S., so we set up this infrastructure in Europe to be able to first sort it and then shred it and then recycle it and then make those first products out of them. So hopefully with that, then generate the cash needed to continue running the cleanup. And of course, now it's still small scale.
Right.
Eventually, we should have those number of shipping containers every day, probably.
So do you have like a group of people that's trying to come up with ideas of what to make out of the plastic?
Yeah, it's a little team inside the Ocean Cleanup working on that. And so I think they said that by September they should be ready to launch the first product. So
that's great, man. That's the whole idea behind it's beautiful. Don't you have a river system too as well, right?
Yes. So that's the other thing, right? So on one hand, we need to clean up what's running in the ocean. It doesn't go away by itself, and basically the only way to deal with that is to just go out there and clean it up. But of course, then there's this other side of the equation, which is there's still huge amounts of plastic flowing into the ocean every day, mostly from countries in Central America, Southeast Asia, where people are kind of at this stage of development, or countries are at a stage of development where the people are wealthy enough to consume a lot of things that are wrapped in plastic, yet there isn't any waste infrastructure yet to take care of it. So you literally see people on scooters just drive to a bridge to dump their municipal waste into the river, because that's simply the easiest way to get rid of it.
Wow.
To your point, what's easiest, people will do. And so it's not really that people don't care there, or that they are less civilized or something, but it's really a combination. There's a lot of people, and there is no infrastructure that they can make use of. So then back in 2015, we were like, okay, maybe at some point in time this ocean thing will work out. Who knows? But then we're stuck with this problem that there's still so much plastic flowing in that we would just have to keep going forever. And that would just be not very motivating. And we want to be this project with a beginning and an end. So we're like, okay, so where's the plastic coming from? And then we figured, probably rivers. Rivers are like these arteries that carry the trash from land to sea, because when it rains, plastic washes from street to creek to river to ocean. And but then we found out that there is 100,000 rivers in the world. So that's kind of a big amount if you want to do something about it. So we started doing measurements in rivers, and then what we found was that just 1% of rivers are responsible for 80% of the pollution. So really just a very tiny amount of rivers, if you were to tackle those, could really address the majority of the plastic going into the ocean. And it's mostly like these relatively small rivers in capital cities like Manila, like Jakarta, like Kuala Lumpur. We have very high density of people. Near the coast, that's where most of the leakage, most of the emissions occurs. So since 2015, we've been kind of as a secret side project, been working on seeing, well, can we actually develop something to intercept the plastic in those rivers? And we just launched it a month ago. We call it the Interceptor. And it's this this scalable system that's almost like plug and play. So you bring it to a river and you install it, and it just works. It's fully autonomous, solar powered.
So this is all the real plastic that's being pulled out of this river from your machine.
Yeah, so
that's incredible.
This was the prototype.
Dude, that's amazing.
This was in Jakarta.
For people that are just listening, we're looking at this thing pull enormous amounts of plastic out of this river, and it's also doing so they're stacking it into these bags. It's a large physical quantity of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then maybe you can actually pull up the video of Interceptor 2 in Malaysia. So we already have 2 of them in real life as we speak.
How does it avoid doing anything with fish? How do you avoid accidentally? Oh my God, is that real?
Yeah. So this is the Klang River in Kuala Lumpur, and it's according to our model, it's like the 5th most polluting river in the world. So 1% of all plastic going into the world's oceans is coming from that one river. And
this is unbelievable how polluted this is. This is crazy.
It's 10 million kilos per year, roughly. So
just looking at it, it looks like a wasteland. That's so sad.
Yeah. So then we we now have 4 interceptors. 2 of them have already been deployed. So here's the one going to this Klang River, and kind of wanted to make it look like a spaceship, just so people would like it. And so it has this barrier that concentrates the plastic to the mouth of the interceptor, where you have a conveyor belt that then scoops it out of the water. Again, fully solar and battery powered, and then deposits it on to this moving shuttle conveyor, which then distributes it across these big dumpsters, can hold roughly 50 cubic meters of trash. And it just works by itself. So it's that's what it does. How much?
That's an insane amount of garbage that you're pulling out of there. When you look at it visually, folks, you can watch the video. What is the name of this video, Jamie, so people can find it? Rivers Interceptor 002 Cleaning in Malaysia is the title of the YouTube video. It's crazy. Now, and you're not catching any fish in this?
Oh, yeah. So because this barrier is non-permeable, the current just flows underneath it. Basically, the sea life can just pass it. Actually, at one point we had this giant lizard, which was probably 2 meters. We should probably post that photo. It was actually kind of climbing onto the barrier, and then it just swam around it. So
2 meters, really?
Yeah, 1.5. Like, it was.
What kind of lizard is that?
I don't know the name, but it was
Some kind of monitor or something?
monitor. That's
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have where's
Huge.
that? Do you see an image of that? No? Do
I'll
you-
post that next week.
Oh, you haven't posted it
No,
before?
no,
Oh, okay. He was looking for it.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying it was out there. So it's safe for fish. What about the stuff that doesn't float on the very surface?
Right. So the system goes down 1 meter. What we measured is that really almost all the plastic is in that top layer.
Okay.
So sure, it won't be 100% efficient, but I think it's really about having this pragmatic thing that catches most of it.
And most importantly, leaves wildlife alone because everything else can just swim underneath that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. And so this plan that you had when it's been 6 years running, how much of your daily time is devoted to this?
Oh, I don't think there's much free time at all. So, especially past year, I've not had a single free day. So
Not a single.
yeah, just 9 a.m. to usually 9 p.m. in the office. Just it's been busy, but I think it was worth it. Now looking where we were beginning of the year to where we're now.
Well,
Yeah.
now that you've actually pulled these cargo containers filled with plastic out of the ocean, that must give you an extreme feeling of satisfaction, right? That you've actually made it work. Like it's moving now.
So I was kind of hoping for that feeling, but then when you get to that point, you're like, okay, but there's still, you can really only see the amount of work that's still ahead of you. So it's actually really hard to kind of enjoy successes in a way. I should probably get better at that.
It's hard. Well, particularly what you're doing, you have a monumental task in front of you. And what you're doing is rightly being applauded by so many people, but I don't know how many people are actually helping you. You have a crazy thing that you're doing. You're trying to pull the plastic out of the ocean. When people find out about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, they get panicky. They're like, "What? How long has this been going on? How do I not know about this?"
Right.
Because so few people. I mean, I would think like maybe 40% of the population understands that there's a gigantic patch of garbage in the middle of the ocean.
And it was discovered 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly 20 years ago. And
That's crazy.
Still it's there, just been growing.
So 1998, no one had a goddamn clue.
Nope.
And then they went, "Wait, hey, what's going on out here?
Yeah.
What is all this garbage?" And it keeps getting bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, it's actually quite a good story. This is this sailor called Charles Moore, who was participating in a sail race between Hawaii and California. And while others would go further north, he thought, well, let's try and cut off this piece. And then he was looking at the water, and he just saw all that trash. And then he went back. He was so shocked about it, and then he decided to take some measurements, publish the results, and that kind of popularized that whole concept of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
It's a weird thing to see when you see drones flying over it and you see the footage of it, and it's also it's a lot of it is a lot smaller than people think of it because it's broken down by the ocean, right?
Yeah, so that's what happens over time is that these larger objects have basically enters the ocean due to the working of the waves as well as the sun breaks down into these smaller pieces, which is actually not really a good thing because these smaller pieces are then easier to ingest for fish and other wildlife. So the smaller it gets, in a way, the more harmful it gets as well. And fortunately, what we see is that still 92% of the plastic is still non-microplastic, so big stuff. But of course, if we don't clean it up over the next few decades, all of that big stuff will also become microplastics, and then we're in a much worse state.
Is the cleanup of those microplastics possible, or is it just something that needs to be sort of rethought out?
Well, so that was actually one of the positive surprises that we had this year, is that the cleanup system in the patch wasn't just catching plastic, not just the big stuff. It was also catching most of the microplastics. So down to 1 millimeter.
Gets, like, clogged up with all the other stuff. Is that what it is?
We're not exactly sure how it was able to do that, but we just saw huge amounts of those microplastics in the system. It probably has to do something with the radiation of the waves. So you have that big pipe that keeps the system together. And because waves are kind of crashing against it, it reflects waves as well. And almost like a lens, it was concentrating those microplastics into one patch in the middle of the system, which so it was kind of just holding on into the system. That was really we weren't expecting to collect microplastics, but there we were.
That's pretty cool. So now, where are you at in terms of trying to expand it to a point where you could, really get this goal of half of the plastic of the ocean in 5 years?
Yeah. So it would probably be easier if we had one goal, but we now set two goals for ourselves. One is the 50% in 5 years for the patch, but the other one is that we want to have interceptors into the 1,000 most polluting rivers, the ones that do the 80%, in the next 5 years. So we'll be pretty busy. Yeah.
Really, really busy.
Yes.
As
so
if you're not busy enough.
Yeah.
How many people are working for in your organization?
Now about 100, and I think really the team has been is now better than it's ever been. So fortunately, there's definitely a lot of help, but we're still recruiting quite. I think not another 20, 30 people coming half a year. So definitely there is a lot of work to do. And
what has this ride been like for you, from being this like really young guy when you figured this out? Like, how old were you when you came up with the idea?
The first idea is when I was 16, but really founded the organization when I was 18.
Yeah, so that's really young. 18 to where you are now, just being constantly involved in this process. What has that been like for you?
Educational, I would say. So really when I started, and when I look back at when I started, I really didn't have a bloody clue what I was doing. And I suppose that was a good thing, because if I would have known how complicated and how big it would have to become in order to actually take some plastic out of the ocean, I probably wouldn't have started it. It was just too big. And I remember doing giving my first presentation back in 2012, and somebody approached me and he said, "Okay, it's a great idea. It's going to cost like tens of millions of dollars. You're going to need a team of maybe 100 people to get this to a point that it could actually work." And I thought this guy was crazy. Like, no way you can. So that's why I started a $2 million crowdfunding campaign to get it started. And he was closer to the truth than I could have ever imagined.
When you think about the amount of time that you're investing in this, how do you see yourself ever getting off this ride? Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? No.
So I simply want to solve problems, and I think this is kind of a good starter problem. It's I think it's very feasible to actually solve it.
It's, by the way, hilarious that you're talking about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch as a starter problem.
Oh, well.
What kind of ambition do you have, dude? That's one of the most perplexing problems with garbage and waste today.
Yeah, but I do think it's solvable, and it's
I think it is too, according to you and what you're saying. But to call it a starter problem is hilarious.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think the exciting thing for me is that I can pick this problem as the first one, because I believed it would not just be solvable; it's solvable by a relatively small group of passionate people. And so of course, what I hope is that with the Ocean Cleaner, we can kind of create this blueprint of how you solve a problem and how you make civilization a bit more sustainable, so that hopefully with that blueprint we can not only solve more other problems in the future, but also inspire others to do the same thing.
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. And do you have any other things that you want to try to solve once you've sort of stepped away from this?
Yeah. So I really, there's definitely not going to be a shortage of ideas. So I keep this little booklet, and it's kind of overflowing. But what I realize is to be successul with the cleanup, I really need razor sharp focus, and I can only do one thing at the same time. And like ideas are like viruses, and when they enter your mind, it kind of expands, and evolves, and it's really quite dangerous actually to have new ideas. I forget who said that, but somebody recently I heard saying the best thing you can do is having one great idea and then never having any other ideas in the rest of your life. So just because to be
Your resources.
right to achieve something, you need full focus. I think it was Stuart Brand, by the way.
It's a good thing to say. It's accurate. What do you think though about what I was going to get at was, do you ever conceive of a possibility of coming up with something that removes carbon from the atmosphere? That's a giant issue with us, right?
Right.
Carbon emissions.
So definitely, I believe negative emissions, what I think you refer to them, will be required to make the goals to kind of keep the warming in check. However, it's a much more difficult problem because if you think of the ocean, it's basically a two-dimensional problem. It's a plastic on the surface, and fortunately, it's not even the whole ocean. It's kind of concentrating in these accumulation zones. So the garbage patch, although it's twice the size of Texas, it's still 1.6 million square kilometers, while the ocean is something like 300 million square kilometers, to my head. So it's really just maybe less than 1% of the ocean which needs to be cleaned. And it's a two-dimensional problem. Well, the atmosphere is three-dimensional. So it's just this one-dimensional increase is just, it's just a huge challenge. So I do think it needs to be tackled, and it's definitely an exciting problem to think about. I do think that's not a good starter problem to work on.
No. Wasn't there something, Jamie, that we had talked about where they had figured out a way to make these building-sized, essentially vacuum cleaners they were going to put in the center of certain cities? I believe it was in Asia, maybe perhaps China. They'd come up with this. And I don't know if they implemented it yet, but the idea was to have these enormous things in place that look like a skyscraper. And really, it was just a huge vacuum cleaner for carbon.
Sure. I know there of a few companies that work on it. I believe carbon engineering is one. There's also one out of Switzerland. Forgot the name, but so definitely good, smart people are working on that problem. I'm not sure where they are in terms of the economics and scalability.
Is it right here?
When he mentions carbon engineering, is this one?
Okay, so that
Bill
looks
Gates
like
funds it.
giant fans, like a huge building filled with fans.
Yeah.
We believe humanity can solve climate change. Yikes. Imagine like we have filters for air, the same way we have filters for water. Direct air capture technology. Carbon engineering. More than 10 years in the making that can capture carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere. And look at that machine. Try to get a close-up on what that thing looks like. It looks like giant fucking washing machines, right? Like it's washing the air. Doesn't it look like giant washing machines? Wow. I mean, it seems like it's feasible. It doesn't seem like it's something that's impossible.
Yeah, but I think just it's the scalability that's the main challenge. I mean,
well, it's also funding. Like if you drive over or fly over Manhattan, rather, and see the density of the structures and how many buildings are in there, you know that people can make some pretty insane shit.
Right.
Why couldn't they make some giant, insane vacuum cleaner for the air that's you know as big as a city block?
Of course, a lot of it comes down to economics. Our system is not very good at valuing things that are long term or directly benefit ourselves. So definitely,
people tax it. They'll find a way to make it profitable. Is this another one?
Rendering of what one would look like to capture 1 million tons of CO2 per year.
Whoa!
Looks like it'd be noisy.
Oh yeah, probably annoying as fuck. Look at those fans. That's so weird though. Like the whole array of fans. Like okay, that seems like a way to do it.
Looks like somebody built a giant computer and trying to cool it or something.
And then they'll have all this carbon. What the fuck do they do with that? Burn it? What do they do?
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you make shit out of it? What do you do? Make diamonds? Imagine that. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. You make it out of the carbon that you pull out of the air.
Be a good business model. Right?
That would be a great business model. This would be like a green diamond, right? A diamond that's actually made, and it's all pressured by solar power. They use solar power to fucking smash it.
Carbon
Flame
fiber
free.
too? Yeah. Is that the same carbon fiber?
I don't know. Is it the same shit? Yeah, why not, right? Must be. It's carbon, right? Okay. So carbon is how they make it's coal, right? Which is essentially carbon, right? Do they make diamonds from carbon, or they make diamonds just from coal? What is coal? Coal's like burnt shit, right?
There's many forms in which carbon exists.
Yeah.
So
I know
different
they
crystal structures.
They are doing that now, where they are making commercially made diamonds. Diamonds are made of carbon, so they form as carbon atoms under a high temperature and pressure. They bond together to start growing crystals. That's why a diamond is such a hard material, because you have each carbon atom participating in 4 of these very strong covalent bonds that form between carbon atoms. I've never read that word out loud. Covalent. Have you ever read that word out loud?
Covalent, I believe.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I've never even seen that word. So these bonds that form between carbon atoms. So I know they're doing that now. They're making diamonds with certain machines.
High pressure, high heat.
Yeah. If they did, that would be hilarious. That would be a good thing too, because they would put a dent in the actual diamond market, which is this weird lockdown, fucking strange market. Because diamonds aren't nearly as valuable as they're set out to be. De Beers takes these diamonds and they stockpile them, and they only release a certain amount of them, and they keep the price very high.
Huh.
But it's all engineered.
Right.
Like the profit, like diamonds used to be far more rare than they are now. But with the innovation in mining technology and their ability to get to diamonds they couldn't get to before, they have a lot of diamonds. Like
Sure.
it's not as valuable as it appears when you go to buy one.
Okay. Well, didn't know that.
So we can make carbon diamonds, bro.
Actually, plastic, again, it's
Makes
just carbon
diamonds?
chains.
Oh, that's
so
right. Yeah, you
we
could
could even make diamonds out of ocean plastic.
Whoa, that would be the ultimate green diamond. Imagine like if you're like a really ecologically minded rapper, you could wear all your ice could come from the ocean. Let everybody know.
From trash to treasure.
Yes, there you go. Dude, that's the signature of the company. In quotes, from trash to treasure.
Should definitely write these things down.
Boyan Diamonds. How about that? I like it.
Yeah.
Dude, you could be the first guy to do this. Here we go.
Plastic, but this is an ocean diamond.
Whoa! Earth is crushing the ocean into salty diamonds. That's a dope looking diamond too.
What is that? Is it
Salt, I guess.
Recreated salty diamond deposits in a high-pressure, high-temperature experiment, suggesting that many of Earth's diamonds form when the mantle crushes ancient seabed minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, isn't science and the Earth cool? I mean, if you do get to do this, here's another problem, okay? Here's a big one for the ocean. We're depleting it of seafood, of
Sure.
life. I mean, I had... how do you say his name again? Sahoyas, right? Louis Sahoyas, who directed The Cove on.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the deplenishing of the wildlife in the ocean. And when you start looking at it on a grand scale, like how much fish they're pulling out of the ocean, it's very sobering, you know?
Sure.
Maybe you can come up with a way to replenish the fish in the ocean so we can continue eating sushi. What do you think?
So maybe could just zoom out a bit and realize because of course plastic pollution, climate change, overfishing, I think it's all part of one big problem to make civilization sustainable. And the way I look at it is that, of course, over the past 200 years, humanity has made tremendous progress. So, of course, since agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, humanity has been kind of stagnant, no progress, or just very, very slow progress. Number of people, lifespan, it was all kind of flat. Nothing really happened. And then since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and when we learned how to utilize science and our knowledge, collective knowledge, to turn that into progress, basically every possible metric for humanity has improved tremendously. And if you think of wealth, health, violence, education, rights, all these things. I know you've had Steven Pinker on. He's much more knowledgeable on that topic than I am. So truly, at this point in time, it has never been a better time to be alive for humans than today. Not saying that it can't get better, but we have made tremendous progress by, on one hand, imagining things that don't exist yet, so inventing technologies and also inventing institutions. And on the other hand, our human ability to collaborate effectively in large numbers, which includes the corporation, which is a very effective way for people to work together. Now, all that progress has also had its negative side effects, which are most pronounced, of course, in the area of the environment, where we put things into an environment that shouldn't belong there, and we take too much out of it, then nature can replenish, which includes the fish, and on the other hand, you have the plastic going into the environment, etc. So then the question is, well, how do we solve that? And of course, one hand is to say, okay, it's kind of maybe the Luddite is maybe a bit of a negative way to phrase it, but the sort of reactionary approach of saying, okay, we should consume less, corporations are bad, technology is bad, we should all get rid of all those things. And I think the environment, the modern environmental movement, which is really kind of this romantic movement, has this image of back in the day, everything was great and we lived in harmony with nature. So let's get rid of all this modernity and try and return to that pure original state. What I, however, believe is that, first of all, I don't think it's a very realistic thing. People want to keep their iPhones and their cars, and people want to move forward. And at the same time, I don't think it's really the most effective way to solve these problems, because it would be like fighting a leopard tank with bow and arrow. Technology is nothing more than an enabler of human capabilities. It enhances our power. So why not use that power to also try and solve these problems as well? So rather than try and reject business, reject technology, I truly believe that we should embrace those forces that make us human and has created this amazing world to also try and solve these negative side effects as well. And that's why I believe the overconsumption of fish is not going to end by people all becoming vegan, but rather through fake meat. I think that the transport emissions are not going to be solved by people not flying anymore or not going anywhere anymore. Realistically, people are going to fly more, so we better invent technologies that allow people to do that without harming the environment. And the same thing, I think, would be the case for plastic and really other energy uses as well.
No, I think that's a very wise way of looking at it, and it's a hopeful way of looking at it. And it's funny that today you kind of even though you're dealing with statistics and factual information, like the fact that it is safer to live today, there's less violent crime, it's easier to get by, there's more technology, more innovation, medical technologies improve radically, all these things are true, but you still have to say it's not where we want it to be.
Right.
I'm not saying that the world's you have to say that, even even though look, it's the worry about people barking at you. So worry about people. It's still terrible in parts of the world. It's still terrible for people of color. It's still terrible for trans. It's still. I get it. No one's saying that there's not room for improvement, but you have to say that. You, even though you felt compelled, you're like, it's still not perfect.
Yeah, and I wonder why it's so controversial. I think it's important to learn from the things that we do well and then apply that.
I don't think it is that controversial. I think it's a trick.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of people looking for every single opportunity to complain, even to someone like you who has objectively done nothing but good. You say one thing, Steven Pinker took a ton of heat for saying that, and even though he's talking about actual scientific statistics, he's not saying the world's perfect and everyone should shut up. What he's saying is we should look at this, from a bird's eye view, look down and understand that although there's much work to be done, we're in a great place in comparison to the rest of human history.
Sure, and it's hopeful to realize that progress is possible. Just imagine that there's something that feels intuitively right, as if every step forward would also have to equal a step backward elsewhere.
Yes. And
I don't think that's the case. There's plenty of things that you can invent that are not that. And we see it, for example, with carbon right now, that there's countries where, like Sweden, GDP has grown a lot past 20 years, carbon emissions has gone down. So they call that the decoupling. And I think what's really the main challenge in this century is to decouple human progress from those negative side effects. And I think the way to do that is not reactionary. It's really, again, through innovation and through collaboration.
I agree with you, and I think that a lot of times people just assume that these are the consequences of innovation, that there's a pro and a con to everything, because there have been so many things that are inventions where there are a pro and a con to it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that way.
No, and even if things have a pro and a con, it doesn't mean the pro is as big as the con.
Right.
So, and if that would be the case, every technology would be neutral, and it wouldn't matter what you invent, but it would mean that an atomic bomb is morally as neutral as an ocean cleanup system, which I just don't find plausible. So I do believe that inventors, entrepreneurs, they put a certain morality into their creations, into their technology. There is a certain use that you prescribe with your invention. I mean, you don't use nuclear bombs to wash your car, right? I mean, you use it not for benign uses, unless maybe you want to terraform Mars, which some people propose to do with atomic bombs. I don't know whether that's a good idea. I don't think technology is neutral. It has a morality. So what that means is that as long as we consistently develop net positive technologies, eventually the world does get better and better. If, say, a technology is 60% good and maybe has 40% downside, okay, but then we can invent a solution for that 40%, and maybe that's again net positive, and you kind of get this cascade of ever improving world.
No, I think what you're saying sounds beautiful. And if more people thought the way you're thinking, I think the world would be a better place. I like the positivity. I like the optimism and what you're thinking, particularly in terms of what's possible with innovation. Yeah.
Well, I just don't think that being against something is very productive.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really move us forward.
Right.
So rather than protesting against the things that I don't agree with, and there's certainly things that I don't agree with, but again, I don't think it's very helpful. Rather than doing that, I'd much rather build towards a future that I do agree with.
Listen, man, I think what you're saying is very, very logical. I wish more people thought like you. You're a great role model for a lot of kids to use your energy in a positive direction. It can be done.
Yeah, sure. I think we agree with each other.
Yeah. Do you think that? When you're looking at this this possibility of getting 50% of the ocean's garbage out in 5 years, do you think that's realistic in terms of like the resources that you have, the funding that you have, and all that stuff? And if not, how can people help? Is there? Do you have a website where people can?
Yeah.
Donate?
So definitely, we don't yet have both. We don't have the technology ready yet to really clean up the patch. On the rivers, it's a different story. We're really ready to scale. But on the ocean, we still need some iteration. And of course, the funding isn't there yet. So of course, on our website, theoceancleanup.com, people can donate. People can also...
Oh, okay, cool. There it goes. Support the cleanup.
Yeah.
And so you have, is it like PayPal or what is it?
Yeah, anything you want. And you can you can join the queue for the products.
That's excellent. Beautiful. And so, are you getting a lot of success with that? People are contributing?
So, definitely so far has been enough to keep the development going. So it hasn't really been the limiting factor, but of course, if we want to scale, we're going to need a lot more resources. So definitely a lot of help will be required there in the coming years. It's
amazing that this is taking you so long and that you've been working on it so hard that you have all this energy to be able to pursue something like this. I mean, was there ever a time while you're doing this where you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this? Is it sustainable like this every day? No days off, constant?
Yeah, so probably I should take a few days off
Hell
end
yeah.
of the year. Yeah, this year has been tough.
Do you feel guilty if you take time off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit, yeah. So I feel that with a lot of my, that's probably the case for everyone, that a lot of my strengths are at the same time also my weaknesses. So I think I'm pretty creative, so it's good. But at the same time, it means that I really have to force myself to not be distracted by new ideas. I think I have a good work ethic, but the downside is that it's also very hard to slow down. And I do realize that taking breaks, it is eventually it is better. It does. The best ideas that I've had were during times off. Really, like even the ocean cleanup idea was, I was 16, was scuba diving in Greece, saw more plastic than fish. That was during a break. So I should probably take a few days.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just go, go somewhere where you could just take a few naps, just relax, recharge,
Yeah.
get your system back online perfectly.
Yeah. Though I think one side note to make is that, with everything that I've ever done in my life, I've always been very obsessed about it. And I think when, it's something that you cannot really stop thinking about it, it never really feels like work either. So it's
A calling.
I just wouldn't be able to imagine just having a normal job doing something you're not passionate about. It's I never really how miserable would it be to just be in an office and have to stare at the clock waiting for 6 p.m. until you can go home.
Right.
That's like probably my biggest nightmare.
For a lot of people, that's their life. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't mean to offend anyone here, but
Look at you being nice again, covering your tracks.
But yeah,
No, I agree with you.
You know,
I
it's-
understand exactly what you're saying.
and a lot of people don't realize that the biggest asset they have in their life is their time, and
Mhm.
to spend that wisely. You have this 80,000 hours of which I believe is like 40 years, 40 hours a week. Turns out that's 80,000 hours that you can use for anything. And and I do believe that people often have a lot more potential than what they turn out to be doing if they were to realize how valuable that time is. And sort of the classic model also for more wealthy people is to work very hard and then to kind of donate here and there. But probably you could be a lot more effective if you were to just use your brain, use your time directly on working something that matters.
Well, I think what you just said is like legitimate inspiration talk. There's a lot of people that
Should I write a book?
you should. Well, I mean, just a video I think is good enough. Just a video of you explaining your philosophy. I mean, you have accomplished so much, and your idea that you're doing is so noble and actually effective. There's something that people need to hear sometimes about different people's philosophies on how to spend their time and their energy. And your perception of, instead of wasting it on other things, just concentrate on something that you think is going to make an impact, something that you're drawn to, something that... And yeah, when you do that, then you have a cause, then you have a thing that you're working towards. It's not just simply showing up and doing something that someone's paying you to do that you don't necessarily want to do, which is a trap. A lot of people find themselves in that trap, and they need to hear people like you talk sometimes. That's as inspirational as anyone who's like a professional, inspirational, or motivational speaker for a lot of folks. Maybe more so because you're actually doing something.
Yeah. Well, probably my words carry more credibility once the oceans are actually clean. And
yeah, it'll help. But just the fact you got two cargo holds filled with 2 cargo containers. I mean, who the fuck has that? No one. A couple of people have some bags.
Yeah. And on the rivers, we have for that amount every day now. So,
really?
Yeah.
Every day on the rivers. Wow. Did the river, when you see that horrible pollution drifting downriver. When you see that stuff, does that feel almost like impossible to capture all of it, or pointless because people keep throwing it in there?
Well, of course, that's the thing. So we don't position these interceptors as being
The solution.
the ultimate solution for the whole plastic. So of course, eventually, you have to make sure plastic doesn't end up in the ocean or in the rivers in the first place, right? So, but I was standing. So a few weeks ago, I was in Indonesia and Malaysia to see the machines and talk with government people there, and I was standing on the interceptor, and you see this constant, literally torrent of plastic going into the interceptor, and I was looking upstream, and I realized, well, there's more than 5 million people living in the catchment area of this river, and they have limited infrastructure. They consume so much, and just trying to imagine all that plastic not ending up in the river with just such a diffuse source, 5 million people, was just so hard to imagine. And of course, that's where we have to go to. But realistically speaking, it's just going to take it's going to take a while. It's going to take maybe 2 decades, 3 decades, something like that. So I think rather than kind of staring at kind of the perfect solution and really just working on that, which of course is very important, I think we also need to be a bit more pragmatic and also realize, well, okay, may take 20, 30 years. Let's at least make sure that during those 20, 30 years, we don't have 10 million kilos of plastic flowing out of this river into the ocean. So
you would have to have some sort of cooperation with the people that are doing that and chucking that plastic into the river. So how do you...
So
someone's got to figure out a way to get to them.
So I do hope that the interceptors can have a positive influence upstream as well.
Or people say, good, I don't have to worry about it. They got a thing now.
Yeah.
It's the best place to throw your plastic because they got a thing that scoops it out.
So guilt-free dumping. Yeah. No. No. So that hazard is called or that risk is called moral hazard. It's a phrase from economics where in the insurance industry it's kind of a thing where people make more damage once they are insured because they're less worried. I don't buy it that much as an argument for the plastic problem because it's not like it's a conscious cost-benefit analysis whether you're going to throw something on the street or not. It's more of a unconscious thing. You just do it, right? Or at least I hope you don't, but some people do. And then it's with that same logic, why maybe municipalities should also stop sweeping the streets, and maybe we shouldn't even collect garbage at people's houses because it only incentivizes the creation of garbage. So I don't think that is
you don't
such
believe that though, right?
No. And then there's this other effect called the broken window effect, which where I think it was back in the 60s in New York. What they found is that in streets and neighborhoods where you have buildings that show obvious sign of decay, like broken. That's where the name comes from. Broken windows or litter, that actually would incentivize other unlawful activities. So the similar effect has been observed with like a park. If a park doesn't have any litter, people litter less than when there is litter on the ground. So rather, I think it's the opposite. If you truly believe that the ocean is going to be polluted forever and it doesn't really matter, it's already dirty. That's not really a strong motivation to not litter. But if you say, okay, well, ocean is clean now, they did a lot of effort for that, and once it's clean, I think that would actually be a motivation to not litter.
I think you're 100% right. I think some of those videos where you see shorelines that are so thick, I don't know what part of the world it is, but that are so thick with plastic you can't even get into the water. Like you can't wade out there and swim.
Yes.
It's so disheartening, and you wonder where the world will be if not for people like you that are trying to come up with a solution, where the world will be in 50 years. 50 years ago, this wasn't the case. Now it is. If you could see like a time-lapse video of these oceans from like go back to like 1900 to 2019, and then go back before 1900, does relatively unchanged for thousands of years, right? And then all of a sudden this massive change very quickly with the industrial age.
Yeah. But again, I believe this is a transition phase. It's like our modern civilization being in its sort of teenage years, and
Yes.
we kind of have to grow out of it. And
Couldn't agree more. I hope this worry that we all have will translate into improvement and progress. And I always say the same thing, that we're in some sort of adolescent stage of society and evolution, that we're in this weird sort of state where we're aware of how much we can change our environment, but also still contributing to the detriment of our environment in a non-sustainable way, and then eventually it's going to have to come to a head. You know, when you see people screaming about climate change and all these different things, I mean, this is people realizing that there's a lot going on that maybe not everyone is completely and totally aware of, and but I'm with you. I think it's good to be optimistic. It's healthier to be positive, and I think it's logical that people will find a way out of this. I really do.
yeah, well, I'm not sure whether we'll be right. At least
I'm not sure either.
I hope we are. I think eventually it's going to be fine. It's just a question of how long is it going to take, how much damage will have been done in that period. But realistically, it's the only way there is a chance that we figure this out, right?
Have you faced any opposition to this? Is there anybody that thinks this is a fruitless idea? Because I know there were people that were actually, I was very shocked. I read people that were actually happy that your project didn't work the first time. I'm like, what the fuck, man? There's people that, I think it's a young thing. Like, because you're this really hopeful, young, intelligent guy who comes up with a solution. And I think it probably, wow, does he think he's so fucking smart? Oh, fuck him. I hope it fails. And when it failed, people actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did that hurt?
No. So for me, yes, of course, since the beginning, 2013, there have been people, like relatively small group of people, but there have been people that have been opposing it, and most of them, ironically enough, are people that care about the ocean because they don't feel it's the right way to tackle the issue. And but so the way I deal with it is, and at least what I used to do in the beginning. Now fortunately there aren't many new arguments anymore, but just basically write them out, every single argument, rationally analyze them. No emotions. Emotions only model your thinking in that way, and make a distinction. Okay, is this something where this person has a point? If so, great, because rather have somebody else pointing it out to me than us having to learn it in the field and having a unnecessary failure. And if the person doesn't have a point, and if it's just assumption or unfounded or whatever, then it's very easy for me to just ignore it. And then the question is, well, what motivates people to be negative? And I think there's probably 4 reasons. First of all, it's genuine skepticism whether it can be done, and I think that's healthy. And I think we've proved most of those arguments wrong now. But of course, there's still the whole scale-up thing, which we still have to do. So there's still a bit of that, but it's kind of morphing now to a few other things. I think one thing is human risk perception, which is sometimes I think is a cause of some opposition, where it's very easy for people to ignore the baseline when they look at risks. So you can, for example, say, okay, nuclear power, super risky. We shouldn't do that. But then if you compare it to the baseline of other sources of energy, that's actually probably the least risky source of energy there is. Like even solar energy causes more deaths per megawatt hour than nuclear power, because people fall off roofs. So it's really, so if you ignore the baseline and if you say, okay, doing this cleanup, we shouldn't do it because there's all these potential risks, right? Of potentially there is some sea life that may be caught. Potentially there are these moral hazards. There's all these risks, and basically, best thing to do is not do it. What people then are ignoring is sort of the certain hazard of this hundreds of millions of kilos that of plastic that's already in the ocean. And if you were to kind of pose the opposite question and say, okay, so if I were to go to the ocean right now and just dump the equivalent amount of plastic that we were to take out, would dump it into the ocean, would you think that's a good plan? And then, well, probably the answer is no. So I think there's a bit of this, of course, what we're doing, it's new. There are risks involved, but as long as we, map them well, we take things step by step, I think they're manageable. And they're definitely not risks or reasons to not do it, because, of course, the baseline is that there is already doing a lot of harm being done by the status quo. So I think that's one argument behind people's opposition. There's also a bit of what I call zero-sum game bias, where people are saying, well, you shouldn't do this because the resources would be better spent elsewhere. I saw an op-ed in Wired a few weeks ago where people were saying, well, or just one person actually was writing, where this person said, you shouldn't worry about the plastic pollution issue. You shouldn't do anything about it because climate change is the biggest issue and all our attention should go there. Plastic pollution is just a distraction. And
that's foolish.
Well, yeah, I think, there's 7.5 billion people in the world, and we can do more than one thing at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, should you not wash your dishes because your carpet is dirty? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Both of them are a problem. Clean both of them. This idea that you should only think about climate change. It's like, don't think about the giant Pacific garbage patch that's twice as big as Texas?
Right.
Are you fucking serious? It's a dumb argument. Both of them are important. To think about both of them are important. But a part of writing an article today is writing something that people will get upset about. That's part of it, is like generating outrage, clickbait stuff, having controversial opinions, being a contrarian. All those things are profitable today. I mean, that's a giant part of why people write articles. They don't write articles. They don't write articles to state an objective, well thought out perspective. Always. Sometimes people do, but a lot of times people make some clickbaity bullshit and they kind of twist a story and twist an idea who you are, twist it to sort of make their narrative be more compelling and sell more or click more and get more ad sales.
Yeah. I wonder whether that's in part behind sort of the growing tribalism and polarization that you see everywhere.
Social media. I mean, the fact that Facebook's algorithms, in a sense, support outrage, right? Like these things are designed to support. My friend Ari Shafir tested this, and it's really interesting because he tested it to find out what does it actually support. What it actually supports is what you're interested in. And if you're interested in being outraged, it'll show you things that outrage you. So he decided to just only YouTube puppies.
Yeah.
And that's all YouTube would show him, is puppies. He's like, no, you assholes. This is what you're into. If you're into fucking getting mad about the border and getting mad about the climate and getting mad about abortion and getting mad about whatever the fuck it is, that's what it'll show you because that's what you're interested in. Right. My YouTube feed is mostly muscle cars and fights. Like, why? Because that's what I'm interested in. Yeah. I'm interested. That's and occasionally science things. Yeah. But that's just because that's what you search for. It'll show you what you search for.
I'm sure you're somewhat happy that it shows you those things.
Yes, sure. Yeah. I don't think it's as sinister as people want to say it is. I think the issue is human nature. We are compelled to get upset about things, and I think a lot of it is people that feel disempowered in their own existence. The people that you were talking about that are stuck in cubicles and that are staring at that clock, waiting for the buzzer to ring so they can go home. Right. Those people are online. They're tweeting, they're taking a shit and tweeting, fuck this guy, this little kid thinks he's going to fix this fucking, he ain't fixing shit. There's a lot of what's going on. There's a lot of people that are upset because it's fun to be upset when your life sucks. It's fun to shit on somebody. Sure. It's fun to get mad about the border when, you're living in fucking South Dakota, you're nowhere near the border. What are you worried about? What you're worried about, you're just angry. People are just angry. It's like these aren't logical discussions that people are having. They're shout-offs, and it's a natural part of human nature to get upset about stuff. And even someone who's doing something as beautiful as your perspective, or your idea, instead of just saying, "Look, this guy is doing something amazing. We need someone like this." who's just as innovative and just as inspired to try to tackle this climate issue. And we need more people like him. This is amazing. Instead of that, like, you're spending your resources incorrectly.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He got you, though. You're talking about it.
Yeah. Sure. And yeah, I suppose it's, from the perspective of the person who writes that, it's...
He thinks he's got a point.
Yeah. And indeed, if you're just saying what everyone else says, nobody would see your opinion. Right?
Exactly.
So,
that's a big part of it. Well, journalists are fucked right now, and it's not their fault. It's just print journalism is almost on the way out in terms of like buying things, like buying newspapers and buying magazines. Their numbers are radically down.
Sure.
So they resort to online things. Well, in the online world, you have so much competition. You have competition from a million different things that people can choose to look at or read. And, to get them to read a fucking article, like, you gotta have something good in there. So you have to distort. You have to inflame. You have to get people polarized. You got to get them upset. You got to paint a picture that makes you want to click on this. Like, what is he doing? That fucking idiot's wasting his time trying to pull... Doesn't he know what Greta Thunberg has been saying? How dare you? That's what's going on, man.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun, weird time for humans. There's a lot of negative things, but there's also a lot of positive things. It's a fun, weird time. Yeah. There's a lot going on, and it's happening very, very, very quickly. And the prognosticators, the people that are trying to, have some sort of an idea of where this is all going, no one really knows. And change is happening at such a rapid pace that it scares everybody. So they're looking to define things, and they're looking for control, and they're looking to be the person who's got it figured out, because nobody's got it figured out.
Right.
It's madness. The earth is heating. The fucking ice caps are melting. The fish are disappearing. People are eating dolphins. It's madness. It's madness out there. The fucking garbage patch is growing and growing and growing. And if it wasn't for someone like you who's actually acting and doing something about it, it would just get worse. You have a workable solution. You should be applauded.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. You heard me. Right, Jamie?
I don't think it was specifically...
Fuck that guy, right?
Fuck him hard.
Fuck him hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie agrees.
Well, consensus. Brilliant.
Yes. Consensus is fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But I
consensus
get...
doesn't create clicks, so maybe we need
that
some
guy is trying to
he's
trying to make a living, or she, or there, or they.
Yeah.
They're trying to make a living. I mean, I understand. It's like in this day and age, like, you have to have things you have to write about. So they write about things, and it might not necessarily be, honest.
So how do you incentivize the truth? That's the question.
Again, I think we're in this transitionary phase. And I also think technology is going to make a lot of what we're concentrating on obsolete. I think we are really, really close to some crazy breakthroughs in terms of the distribution of information that's going to make it obsolete. And people aren't going to care as much about clickbaity things, because you're going to be able to feel things from digitally created media. I think we're very, very close to augmented reality becoming an essential part of people's lives. The same way your phone has become an essential part of your life. 20 years ago, no one carried a phone around. It was very rare. And 1999, I mean, a small percentage of people had phones on them. Now it's 100%, right? All this stuff is happening at this exponentially increasing rate. When they implement augmented reality, and who was telling us that Apple's like somewhere around 2021?
Man, it might have been. I've been looking that up.
Yeah.
I mentioned it once or twice.
You definitely did. Might have been you. But some other folks have brought it up too, that Apple's really close, and they're in the process right now of developing some sort of augmented reality goggles. And they'll be like glasses, like, you put on a pair of, just like this, but you'll be seeing all these things in front of you. You'll be able to move them around. You'll be able to see navigation. You'll be able to turn it on and off. It'll probably work on Siri. You'll be able to talk to it. And you're going to be able to get video and information, written podcasts, all these things, music. It's going to come through this. And probably this is one step in this ever-increasing trend of us getting further and further immersed in technology. And augmented reality will lead to some sort of impossible-to-determine virtual reality, where it's indistinguishable from regular reality. we're like 50 years away from literally being in the Matrix.
Yeah. So I think it's underappreciated how much our behavior is also guided by technology. I mean, of course, we have our genes, our genotype, which kind of lies at the most fundamental level of how our behaviors are formed. That's why there is such a thing as human nature. But then there is this whole sort of cultural layer, but that what we humans created around us, which I call the technosphere. Maybe other people have different names for it, but it's indeed. I've recently read we interact with something like 30,000 inventions or 30,000 technologies through our entire lives. That's a huge amount, and I think that environment that shapes your behavior. It decides what kind of genes are expressed. And the interesting thing is that it's not just a natural environment, but it's an environment we create. So probably, when you think about people being born thousands of years ago, their genes were very, very similar to the people today. Yet, how they behave is completely different. Look again at violence. And why is that the case? Well, it's thanks to these inventions, not just physical inventions, but also cultural inventions and institutions that we created that shapes our behavior. And probably human nature is the human behavior is very hard to change unless it actually benefits what we do. Look at smartphones, how fast that happened versus how long it takes for smoking to go away. One is kind of incentivizing the continued use of it through addictive products, while with smartphones, it's something that you want to use. So I just wonder whether that interaction between humans and the technology that we create kind of incentivizes inventors to become morally better and better, because they are. Did you lose me already? Or
no,
okay.
no.
So the question is,
well, people are incentivized primarily by profit, right?
Right. But the behavior that people express is kind of shaped by the world they live in, and who knows. Maybe a person today is more incentivized to do good things because of the environment that has been created rather than 1,000 years ago.
No, I think that's absolutely the case. And I hope that people's ability to express themselves through social media, although is often negative and bitchy, sometimes also can give you a sense of the moral landscape of the culture. Like, not just the people on the far fringes that are the most angry and vehement about things, but people that have objective, real, rational thoughts. Like the fact that you were able to read that article and objectively assess whether or not someone has any good points or not. If we could all do that about everything, if people had that sort of perspective, instead of being so reactionary, instead of being so angry about things, just look at criticisms, look at possibilities, look at all these different things, and then shape technology to fit within our ethical and moral boundaries. So and also it's very profitable, right? Because if things don't feel, if you don't have like a guilty feeling about buying something, like every time I get a plastic straw now, I feel guilty, right? If there was something that people, where they innovate to the point where you don't feel guilty supporting products, and you feel like this company has the same sort of ethics and ideas that you have, that's all good. And I think we're moving more towards that. But again, like we're dealing with a very short window of time where human beings have had to adapt to this incredible amount of change that takes place during a small period of time.
Yeah, it's kind of where one way to look at problems is that it's kind of this chasm between human nature, human behavior, and how we want the world to be. And indeed, social media, that's the case. But similarly for environmental problems, we humans are driven by certain things. Indeed, self-interest is definitely a big part of it. And yet, that's not creating the world right now that we want to live in, because the technosphere, the technology that is the interface between the world, so sort of nature and human nature, that interface is not compatible with both. So you either have something that's compatible with human nature, so it's like a big car with a V8 engine, but that's not compatible with nature. Or you have something that's compatible with nature, which is probably walking, but it's not really compatible with human nature because we're lazy and greedy.
Yeah, it's cold outside, and you got to get somewhere in a snowstorm.
Exactly. So ideally, what we do is, rather than trying to change humans, which I don't think is a very futile activity, because there is such a thing as human nature. We have genes. We have this evolutionary history. Rather than trying to change that, I think it's much more effective to change the technology around us that enables our inner desires and behaviors to be positive rather than negative.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be difficult, though, to get that same sort of positive result when it comes to our addiction to technology, our addiction to smartphones in particular. I mean, for a long time, it was like televisions, right? Like people talked about how much kids watch TV.
Right.
Kids watch TV 8 hours a day. It's so much. It's so bad. You don't really hear that anymore.
Right.
You hear about phones. And this is sort of an undiscussed, rapid shift in what we waste our time doing. Right. And most of it is what you hear people talking about. And most of the use of these phones, I'd be willing to bet a giant chunk of that social media.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and I suppose that's, again, this sort of infantile stage of that technology, I suppose.
Now we're infantile. It was adolescent before.
Yeah,
now you're dropping it down.
So
I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, probably we can engineer social media and our information technology to incentivize people to do good things, but indeed now it's probably incentivizing the use of scrolling through timelines because you watch more ads.
I think it's our bodies and our minds and the way we view the world. We're not designed to live in this digital realm.
Sure.
This is a completely new thing for the species. And I think we don't really know how to handle the dopamine rush that we get from clicking on Instagram and scrolling through your feeds and checking your DMs and reading your emails and constantly interacting with people and checking, did he text me back? Oh, what did he say? Oh, well, that's interesting. What about this and that and this and that? You're just all day interacting with some digital device. We're not made for this. Right. We're supposed to go outside.
Yeah, and then you have very bright engineers somewhere in a big shiny building, A/B testing all day to see whether a red dot on a certain icon in the social media app makes people click more or less, and that's
Well, Instagram's they're dabbling with this idea of taking away the likes.
Right.
Like, what if we just didn't show anybody the likes?
Right.
You don't know how many likes you get. You put up a picture, it's just a fucking picture. Move on.
Yeah.
No. You put up a picture. He got 70,000 likes for that picture?
Right.
What the fuck, man? You check it an hour later. 74,000.
Right.
Ooh, it's going viral.
Yes.
It's weird. That likes thing is one of the weirdest drugs. Nobody saw it coming, and people get addicted to, saying things that get likes, right? Putting things up that are socially conscious to let everybody know how virtuous you are.
And
Give
exactly.
some likes. Give some likes.
Yeah. And it's all making use of, I suppose, the flaws of our human nature.
What I'm worried is that one day those likes will actually be a physical feeling.
Oh yeah, you get like a
little jolt, little love jolt. Oh, and they'll engineer the system to get you to seek those constant love jolts.
Yes.
Why not? I mean, if they're going to give you augmented reality, we are how many generations, I don't know, away from something being embedded in your body, right? People have already decided to do that. There's was it a guy or a girl embedded a fucking Tesla Model 3 key in their arm so that they didn't ever have to have their key in their pocket. They could just walk up to their Tesla and the fucking door unlocks. Does that and you climb in.
software update, key doesn't work anymore.
I bet it runs out of batteries. They got to cut you open like a fish. It's just, I mean, what the fuck are people doing?
Those are people at the fringes.
They are at the fringes. But there's more of them than you think, and if they make it more, if they make it simple, like you just need like a flu shot, bang, they just inject
I wonder
something
whether
in you.
there's any sort of innate fear or aversion towards crossing that interior-exterior boundary with technology.
Fair is a good way of looking at it, right? Like, what is fair? Is it fair if you agree to do it? Like, look, is it fair if you decide to get a face tattoo? Right? If you, it's up to you, man.
Right.
If it's fair, if it's like, hey, man, my credit card company told me they'd give me 10% off if I stick this, this credit card chip under my skin somewhere.
Yes. I suppose if you incentivize it with, with selfish interests, maybe it will take off.
There's that, and there's also the big concern is, what if these? When we're talking about income inequality in this world, a big one would be, what if there's a jump that you can make in enlightenment, in intelligence, access to information, number crunching, the ability to assess risk versus reward. This is all done computer-wise, and it's done through some sort of additional piece of hardware that they give you or put in your body, but it costs a lot of money. So the people that can afford it initially are the people that are valuable. They have money in the first place. They're the wealthy people already because it's very valuable. But then the people that really need it, they can't afford it. So by the time it becomes something, all the money's gone. Everybody's chewed it all up. Everybody's figured out how to hack the system.
You should become a writer for Black Mirror.
That seems like a Black Mirror episode. It seems like it would work, right? Yeah.
That's
what people are worried about when it comes to longevity too, right? They're worried about technological innovations that are allowed people to, nanobots and all sorts of different weird things are going to repair cells and allow people to live for extended periods of time. But then who are these people going to be? Are they going to be the king class? Are they going to be these super duper wealthy people of the future that are going to, hold this over the poor folks who can't afford the technology?
Yeah. So it truly seems like the technologies that we're developing, or that at least are not too far away, our institutions aren't ready yet to really cope with those. Because definitely that would be probably increase inequality quite a lot.
Yes, that is one of the major concerns when it comes to this sort of rapid change that we're facing right now. Another one, of course, is artificial intelligence. There's people that I respect very, very much that have a very negative view of what the future of artificial technology is going to mean to the human race.
Sam Harris. And
Elon.
Yeah,
both of them scare the shit out of me every time I talk about it.
Yeah.
Sam and I did an episode, and where he talked about artificial intelligence and the rise of it, and the fact that once it's uncorked, it's really not going to be able to be put back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And we talked about it for like an hour and a half, and after it was over, like the rest of the day, I was bummed out.
Sure.
I was like, this is inevitable.
Yes. So personally, I have a very optimistic and pessimistic view of technology at the same time. I think on one hand, it allows us to improve the world, and that's what we've seen, and it's gradual and it continues, probably because people want to solve their own problems, and with that inadvertently solve other people's problems. That's kind of how progress happens, I believe. But then at the same time, while the world is getting a lot better, it's also getting riskier. I mean, 2,000 years ago, or maybe even 200 years ago, there was no way to wipe out humanity. There simply wasn't. Even if you wanted it to happen very badly, you could scream, wouldn't happen. Now, though, there are actually people who have the power to do that, and
rapidly, like the whole of humanity could be wiped out in a day.
Yeah, and now it's fortunately just a few people. But imagine if that goes from a few people to quite a few corporations to maybe even everyone. I think there's this this sort of brain teaser or a mental experiment that Nick Bostrom came up with that says, well, what if you could have kind of this atomic bomb that you could just make yourself in your microwave? It's like, well, maybe at some point in time it would just not be economically feasible anymore to rebuild cities because you just would
People just nuking them all the time.
right?
Oh
so,
my God.
so I don't know. So it's on one hand, and so I think that's kind of the scary, risky aspect of it. But at the same time, when you think of it, I would much rather trust an average person today with the button for a nuclear detonation device than somebody 1,000 years ago.
Oh, so for sure. Yeah, one of the Mongols or someone, some savage, just
right?
like, let's do it. Nick Bostrom freaked me out, man. We had a conversation about probability of life being a simulation. That's very high probability. Yeah. It's more probable that we're in a simulation now than we're not. And my puny monkey brain.
According to some logic, yeah.
Yes, that's where it gets weird. Like when you deal with the number of potential civilizations out there, the number of human beings, the amount of time that life has had a chance to evolve, not just here, but everywhere in the entire universe. What are the possibilities that a simulation has occurred already? Very high. What are the possibilities that we're in a simulation right now? Also pretty high.
Simply because there's only one base layer of simulation. So,
also, life seems fake. Right? It seems weird. There's so much of it that seems like, boy, this is...
Like a few weeks ago, I saw like a duck in a pond just making infinite circles. I was like, that's definitely a glitch. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone needs to fix the code.
Debug that shit. Yeah. So, of course, it's lots of fun to think about these things, but in reality, well, I suppose the depressing thing is that we'll likely never know.
Well, maybe
one time somebody will figure out the solution. And
this dystopian view of the future is I mean, I get the perspective. I get the dystopian perspective. But right now, as we said, like, according to Pinker, according to statistics, things are really better than they've been before. And my concern is one of the things that Elon said, that we're the biological bootloader for artificial life. I mean, look, when a caterpillar makes a cocoon, it doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. It just does it. It just makes a cocoon and becomes a butterfly. Right. When, we're buying the iPhone 36 and the Cybertrucks and trying to get a solar-powered plane off the ground, we're probably giving in to this thing. Look, what we have right now is more than sufficient for survival. If we had just decided, if we got all the people in the world to say, hey, we make watches that keep perfect time. Computers, they get online, it's great. You can download YouTube videos. Cameras, they're very clear. They take very clear pictures. Right. Okay, TVs look great. Everything looks great. Internet speeds, pretty fucking good, man, especially with 5G. Let's stop.
Yeah.
Everybody stop. Stop making stuff. Stop. Everything we have right now, just keep making it. No new innovation. Let's just enjoy life together.
Right.
That sounds so logical, but yet also so ridiculous. Like, no one's going to agree to that. No one's going to. Exactly. That iPhone 37 is already in production, bitch. And it's going to be better and faster, and it's going to wrap around your dick and keep you comfort at night. They're going to figure out better stuff no matter what forever. It's part of what makes people people. Yep. We have this unquenchable thirst for innovation. And that's one of the weird things that freaks me out about this move towards technology, is that materialism, which seems to be this like really standard behavior with a giant percentage of the population, like people are really into things, and this desire to have the newest, greatest things is what propels innovation, because there's a financial incentive, because people are making money off of selling you these better watches that you don't really need, or these better cars, or these better computers, and all these things just keep getting better and better and better and better. And a lot of it is fueled by this weird desire that people have for stuff. Sure. Which doesn't make any sense. Like, where'd that come from? Well, that might be the stuff that makes the caterpillar make the cocoon.
It's probably just making use of the same biological mechanisms as social media, right? You feel like you need it.
Yep. Little tricks. Yep. Yeah. And next thing you know, they go, listen, we have two options. Either we let artificial life take over and be the superior life form, or we merge. Let's just make friends.
Yeah.
Let's just make friends with artificial intelligence. Take this little chip, Boyan.
Yeah. Well, so probably if it's possible, and it likely is, it's probably pretty inevitable that it's going to happen. I think it was Edison that said that I never invented anything. I just took elements of what was there. Probably the quote is a lot better than I'm sort of paraphrasing now. But it's kind of, if it's possible, it's kind of there. It's
right.
It's
it just
in the
needs
air.
to be invented. Figured out.
You just have to discover it. And,
Marshall.
So probably that's going to happen. But what does give me hope is that, to my point of the nuclear detonator 1,000 years ago versus now, it seems like we are getting more responsible, and our ability to foresee the future allows us to invent things, but it also allows us to kind of think about the risks and to try and mitigate the risks before they happen. And I don't think there's nearly enough attention given to these existential risks. But the fact that some people are thinking about it is, it's kind of hopeful.
No, I agree. I really do. And I'm posing these things about this dystopian potential future just because it really is probably something that we should think about. But I am hopeful that as technology improves, our understanding of humans improves along with it. And
exactly.
And also that perhaps some technology, like I'm not exactly sure what this Neuralink thing is with Elon that he's coming up with, but
right.
I think some of it has to do with a much more rapid access to information.
Sure.
That has to do with increasing
bandwidth.
Increased bandwidth.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully that will become. I mean, you don't want to say hopefully some fucking wires they stick in your brain will become standard, because that seems like we are merging.
Sure, huh?
I mean, that is merging, right? That's the merge with technology.
Yes.
Marshall McLuhan said the greatest thing about this. He said, "Human beings are the sex organs of the machine world." What a great quote, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those quotes you just go, whoa. Fuck, that is exactly what it is. The machine world can't make itself. Needs us. Like, if we do make artificial life, and McLuhan, I think, wrote that in the 60s.
Yeah.
I think that's from, what is the book? He's got a book, Media something. But, what is the book? Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah. So it's a broader point that
the understanding media or media.
Understanding media.
Okay,
That's
64.
it. Yeah. 1964. Imagine if that guy called it.
Yeah.
In 64.
So definitely, it's a broader point a lot of people make, in that we are in a way enslaved by our technology, and I think in the book *Sapiens* by Harari.
Yes, great book.
He makes the point about grain enslaving us, because with the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, we didn't really become better, according to him. It was less nutritious. It was just a worse way of living than the hunter-gatherers did. But it was very good for the population of grain, and there was no way back for us. So I suppose, that's the thing with all our inventions. They, there are these lock-in effects that can kind of lock us into an inferior position.
Yeah.
And so of course, the risk with artificial intelligence is that a similar thing happens, and that's not very benign. And we didn't foresee those consequences that we will be locked in the year 2065 or whatever it is.
It's one of the more fascinating things about people, though, that we have the ability to contemplate the possibilities, that we have the ability to look at this and go, oh, okay, wait, what are we doing here? Hold on.
Right.
Hold on, we're making a mistake here. Look what wheat's got us doing. Look what rice has got us doing.
Yes.
God damn it. Look how much people there are in the city. There's so many people in the city. What do we got? We got to feed all these people. Shit.
Right.
We didn't think of this. We just kept breeding. And, that's the big concern when people start developing into new areas.
Right.
When people start expanding the technological or the societal sprawl. when you see these urban sprawls just slowly encroaching on new land
Right.
and pushing out into areas where there was no houses before. That's always weird for me when I drive by a place like Boulder, Colorado does a really good job of limiting the amount of construction that gets done there.
Right.
They're pretty fierce about it, but even they have been sort of lightening up a little. Things have been getting built, and every now and then I'll drive by. Like if I'm in Colorado, I'm like, oh, that wasn't there before. Now it's there. Everybody thinks it's harmless. No big deal. Just a new building. It used to be an open field. Who's that helping?
Right.
It's not helping anyone. And then another building outside of that, and another building out. And then, you know, if you had the ability to look in time 50 years from now, you'd see this spread where this weird wart of humanity starts moving across the globe.
There's this cool feature in Google Maps where you can have, or Google Earth, where you can have time lapses from satellite photos, like past 6 years. And for example, if you look at Dubai, like 30 years ago, nothing, and you suddenly all these
Dubai
on.
is a crazy example. That's a crazy example. That place is so strange.
It's like Las Vegas on steroids.
Yeah, Las Vegas on steroids with its own islands.
Yes.
They man-made islands, the shape of the world, like all the different continents of the world. You seen that?
Yeah.
And it's not doing like it's some of it. Apparently, they have to like keep adjusting because the tide rises. And
And apparently
is this the Google Maps thing? Oh,
There's another one, but
there's another one in
same-
Dubai.
same
Oh
thing.
my God, this is insane. This is insane. It's happening so fast. How many years is this spanning? 20? Oh my God, that's amazing.
So some of our engineers used to work for the dredger, and they actually helped build the Palm Islands. And apparently, the problem is that the water doesn't really move in the arms of the palms, so it kind of gets stinky and with algae. So this prime real estate that just
stinks. Oh no, really? Oh, that makes sense. Like the water in between it would get stale. Of course, that makes sense. Fuck, this is bonkers. This video is bonkers.
Here you see these are actual.
Oh, there's
the
That's the thing. So all that water inside, it doesn't get recycled. It doesn't move around.
No. So
How the fuck did they had to do that to keep the an ocean break, right? To
I
keep
suppose
the water from smashing into it, like the outside rim.
you can't just pump everything, I suppose.
So now what do they do with all the stinky water? You just accept it?
Good question.
That fucking world's tallest building is bananas.
Right.
That thing, I've seen pictures that people have taken from the top floor. It doesn't even look real. Like all you flat earthers, you need to go to Dubai. Get up there. You could literally see the curve.
Yeah, and when you stand at its foot, like because of its shape, it looks like even taller.
Can you see the curve from up there? See if go to.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? No.
On an airplane, you can't see it either.
You can kind of see it. That's true.
With a bit of.
Yeah, you got to kind of see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be way up.
Right.
Would you go on one of those Virgin's trips? Where they do a Virgin spaceship fly above the Earth and look
Once
down?
there's good safety statistics.
Right. Good for you. Fuck early adopting.
Yeah, it's probably not good to be an early adopter in the space area.
What kind of psychos would want to be on that first flight?
Well, I suppose Richard would have to go on one of the first ones himself, right?
Oh, if I was him, I would clone myself and put a fake me on that and see if that bitch blows up. I wouldn't trust it.
Stunt double.
Yeah. What is this, Jamie? Is this from?
it's like
Oh
the
my
observation
God.
deck. It's not even the tip top.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting vertigo just looking down. I am freaking out. I get like legit. This is all GoPro, so this is like what flat earthers use to show that the Earth is actually flat. It's the perspective shift.
Yeah.
But just the height of that goddamn thing makes my palm sweat.
Yeah. I was there last year, and there was somebody sticking her phone out of the.
No.
Yes.
No. 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 Oh, god damn, people are crazy.
Yes.
Imagine if she dropped it and it fell and just went right through someone's fucking head. Like, literally like a missile. Boom, your head would just explode. You imagine getting hit in the head with a cell phone from a mile up? Motherfucker.
That's good.
Motherfucker. People are so crazy. I'm going to take a picture and right down. It would take so long, too.
That puts the word burst mode on gives a new perspective to that term.
They should have like an alarm that goes off when someone drops something. Someone can quickly hit an alarm.
Yeah.
And by the time it hits the bottom floor will hit, whap, They can all back away from the building.
These guys are on the tip top.
No, shut the fuck up. Oh my God, they're hanging on.
Are these Russians?
Dude, look at my
No,
hands.
no, these are like these guys. This kid's with his dad. It looks like.
Oh, his
They
dad's
might-
crazy too. Great, you're both fucking nuts. Dude, my hands are sweating right now. I can't handle these. Oh. That dude that we've had on, James, with a K.
Keith. Is that it? Oh,
No.
no.
Kingman?
James.
James, the guy who does those.
You're right.
Is that it? Kingman, right? He does these videos from these fucking places. Kingston. Thank you. Sorry, James.
He's American?
I smoke a lot of weed. No, he lives in England.
Okay.
And he takes these videos where he's like hanging on by one hand with a fucking selfie stick.
Yes.
Looking down these
Yeah.
giant skyscrapers. And my
Those are-
hands sweat so hard
Right.
just watching those. I can't imagine if I was actually doing that. What a terrible fucking instinct or a terrible thing that happens to people. When you see people hanging on to something, your hands sweat. So do your hands sweat when you're hanging on? Yeah, that's just not helping you. That's the worst thing that could happen is your hands get all slippery. Fuck, man.
I'm just looking at his channel. Looks like he recently had an accident. He's
What?
a video posted on September 11th. Says the day I nearly died, and he's got a big old stitches gash.
Well,
on
we
his
talked to
face.
him about that when he was on the podcast. Does he think about that? But he's kind of locked into that now. You're sort of married to this idea that you're the guy who goes up there and does that. You can't just say, "Well, I've done it, no more."
It's like the grain.
Yep, it's like the grain. Yeah, he's married to the thrill. Well, Alex Honnold is the best example of that, right? He's this free solo guy,
Oh, yeah.
a free solo climber that goes El Capitan with no ropes.
Did you watch the...
Yes.
Did you
Fuck
keep your eyes
that.
open?
I've
Yeah.
had him on the podcast a couple of times.
Cool.
He freaks me out. I just don't understand how he can do it. I get it. I get that's his thing.
He's passionate about it,
But
and
again, sweat. My hands are so sweaty. It's just a weird thing that people do where they try to activate their adrenal glands. They try to activate their thrill glands.
right. Yeah, I do respect that. I mean, it's his passion, and he follows his
Yeah,
passion.
some people clean the ocean. Some
Exactly.
people climb 45-degree angle backwards
I
up the
wouldn't
sides of a mountain.
want to be his family, but
No, right?
yeah.
Trying to. It looks like he might have stopped doing that. I mean,
Kingston?
He might be getting paid to still do it as like a stunt person for movies because he did one for a movie recently. But he has a video from this year recently that says like YouTube demonetized all his videos, and he just has been posting car stuff.
YouTube has demonetized his videos. Why?
Very
Because they don't want to
dangerous, probably, yeah,
incentivize?
probably.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
He's had a video explaining it. He could probably talk about it. But yes, at the end of climbing, YouTube demonetized me August 22nd.
Wow. That's interesting.
There you go.
That's interesting. Huh.
He's being more realistic.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They demonetize it, but yet they still have it up. And they still have an algorithm that'll click you after his video and suggest a bunch of other shit they're going to monetize.
But it might not have ads on it.
Right. His video, I'm sure, doesn't have ads on it, but that doesn't mean it's not effectively a part of their system. Like that sort of gets revenue. Because, they're going to recommend a bunch of
yeah.
videos that do have
I know
ads,
what
and
you
you're going
mean.
to keep clicking.
I think as far as YouTube stance is just like if an advertiser saw their ad on this video, that we
Yes.
can't be a part of that.
Well, I think also from YouTube's perspective, almost all of it is illegal.
Very
Yeah.
good point too.
I
so-
think that's a big one. Like, I don't think you could do illegal shit on YouTube
Right.
and get money off of it.
No.
Then they would be responsible in some sort of a way, right?
Maybe, I guess.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Boyan, we're over here fixing the world, dude.
Yeah, done.
Anything else? Do we cover it all, basically?
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah. Of course, oceancleanup.com. People want to help.
Ocean Cleanup, the Ocean
The
Cleanup,
Ocean Cleanup.
theoceancleanup.com.
Yes.
People, please go there and help. We'll help too. We'd love to contribute, love to be a part of this for sure. If there's anything else we can do, if there's anything that you need promoted or you want to let people know, we'd be happy to help. But thank you. Thanks for being you, man. Thanks for inventing this, and thanks for pursuing this so doggedly and being so obsessed with what is an incredibly worthy cause. Appreciate you, man.
Well, thanks so much.
My pleasure. All right, bye, everybody. See you.